Spurman, you had the floor.
All right, thanks guys. Great to meet you all. It's always fun networking with Carl. And again, I want to thank Carl for allowing me to speak today. And the reason again is for experience for myself, and also, you know, hopefully maybe they'll let me speak at a USPTA convention. That's actually why we're videotaping it today, so I can give this to Pierre, the president, and you know, just so they get a feel for how I present. But yeah, I really want to just give you a little background on Autism, tell you why I started it, and tell you what we do and where we are right now with the program. So basically, my wife is a neurologist and she does autism research. She was trained in Boston. We used to live in Boston, and so exactly about 4 years ago, I was doing my MBA, and you know, I really wanted to come up with a program. I was in an entrepreneurship program at Babson, and I really wanted to launch something of my own. And my wife and I have been talking. Recently, we're married, and she and I we wanted to give back. We wanted to do something to give back. So she just started to get involved in autism. She's an MD, so she was seeing kids on the spectrum once a week. She was doing a clinic at Children's Hospital in Boston, and realized that there's just a huge need for kids on the spectrum, and they do really well in play-based programs. So we started to look to see what was out there. I mean, her conversations with parents were traveling all over the state. Some were going into New Hampshire, some were going down to New York, just to find suitable programs for the weekends for their kids, recreational programs. Because you know, let me ask you a question. Do any of you know people that have kids with autism, or? I mean, everybody's very aware of autism now. Like I said, the last 5 years, you know, it's been on the cover of Time magazine. It's really become a very popular word. But so we wanted to figure out if it was feasible to do a tennis program. My wife played college tennis, and I obviously have been in tennis for the last 25 years. So actually, she gave me a couple of her patients. I started with 3 kids on a Sunday morning at the club where I was working, and it was actually my first introduction and first interaction with a child with autism. I really didn't know what it was, and the parents loved it. I mean, they really. What I was going to say was that the kids, they're in school all day, they're in therapies at night, they're doing speech therapy, behavioral therapy, social skills therapy, so that they're really booked solid with therapies, and so this I thought would fit really well, and this is, you know, one hour a week where they get to have a little bit of fun and hopefully learn to play a little bit of tennis. So the feedback from the parents was amazing. They loved it. They liked, you know, they wanted their kids to have exercise. They wanted to learn a new sport, and then I found out that, you know, it really is hitting on a lot of the areas where these kids are weak and struggling with the motor skills, with the hand-eye coordination, and then we started to incorporate social skills as well, where they're taking turns, where they're watching each other hit the ball, and so on. So the program started 4 years ago exactly, this fall. 4 years ago in Boston, we started at anybody from Boston, Longfellow Club, in Wayland, is where we started the program.
I've been there twice now, I love that.
They just built, 4 years ago, they just put in these 4 quick start courts, and they actually had this office space, and they put in these real nets, you know, the small courts, and they actually gave me the space for the first year. They allowed me to use it because people didn't know what it was 4 years ago. I mean, the USPTA had just sort of launched the quick start program. So the owner of the club, Maury Hamill, you know, it's all about, you know, see what you can do. And actually in the last 3 years, it's really become very popular. And it's like they actually call it the zip zone, but it's really known as the kids' tennis club. So across the street they have, you know, the full-size courts, gym, swimming pool, and everything. And then this, on the other side of the parking lot, they have a tennis club that's for the kids. So it really is taken off, and now I'm paying for the space, but it's another story. But so that's basically the program. I'll sort of talk a little bit more about what autism exactly is, because I know people have ideas, but really there's three components to autism. There's a behavioral component, social component, and there's a repetitive behavior to the disease. It's known as a developmental disease, and it's something neurological. If you ask my wife, she would say it's a genetic component. I think that's agreed upon across the board. There's a genetic component, and there's also an environmental component to this. The latest numbers are actually beginning of this year it jumped from 1 in 110 to 1 in 88 kids now, and in boys it's 1 in 54. So it's a lot higher. It's on the rise. People might say that it's being diagnosed more, but it looks like it's on the rise. And if you have a child with autism, the likelihood that the second child has it is, I think, 1 in 2. It's really, really high. So we're doing a lot of sibling studies across the U.S. to really figure out how prevalent it is with kids in the same family. So yeah, it's been a great program. We can pass these out so we have a quick look. But so basically, so I told you what it is. They can detect it and they can diagnose it now at age, I think between 2 and 3 is usually when you start to see that there's something a little bit off with the kids. But what does it really look like when you say you have a kid with autism? So autism spectrum disorders is how people refer to it now. They really broaden the spectrum, so there's really no two kids alike. On the one end of the spectrum, you're talking about kids that are nonverbal. They have funny behaviors. They don't really play with their toys. They line up their toys. They're looking for patterns in their toys and things like that. So what do I deal with on a weekly basis? So there's no two kids alike. It's a very big spectrum. On the one hand, you're going to deal with kids that have no communication skills. They have no attention span, and some can be violent. Some can be just running around the room trying to get so it can be on the one hand very difficult with the low functioning kids. But on the other hand, you're dealing with kids that are Asperger's is a high-functioning child with autism, and this child is actually usually really smart, extremely verbal, but they don't have the social skills. So that's the one end. And I've seen all kids in our program. Our program, we typically do a 10 and under group. And like I said, it's 1 hour a week, usually on the weekends, and then we follow it with it's usually a 15-minute to an hour session, and then we do an older group, which is like 11 to 18. That's usually our sort of standard program wherever we've launched it. We're currently running about 15 different sites right now. In LA, because I'm in LA, we've really expanded a lot. Just to give you an idea, we started at UCLA on Saturday afternoons. We added the health group, which is a huge school. We have a campus in Sherman Oaks. We also have a campus in Culver City, and we're doing an after-school program at their school. We're also in Woodland Hills. That's the closest one to here. We're on Hightower at the Summit. And we recently just launched a program at Burbank Tennis. So pros are coming to me and they're interested in the program, and that's really what's helped me expand. I think it's a great way to give back, and it's a pretty easy thing to set up. If you have a club and you have the court, that's half the battle. The other big component is making sure you have enough volunteers. And as you can imagine, with this program, I would say we have 10 to 15 kids for an hour session on 2 courts, and at UCLA we have tons of students that come out and help. But my ratio is, I'd say for a group of 3 kids, if you have 3 volunteers, sometimes two or 3 volunteers for a group of 3. For the low functioning kids, you really need 2 volunteers working with the low functioning kids. So for a high school tennis player or a college student tennis player, that's the perfect volunteer for the program. And then obviously besides the volunteers, you've got to find the kids. And some places we advertise and it takes off through word of mouth. Other places it's been slow. In Woodland Hills, we started with one child about 6 months ago. And I started advertising for the Burbank program, and the Woodland Hills program started to fill up. So funny things sometimes happen. But marketing the program, is through pediatricians, through therapists, through speech therapists. And like I said, if you can find 2 or 3 families that are all about trying to find programs that want to go out there, that's a great selling point. You can find a parent of a child that's in the program. It can really help you spread the word. LA's been a little bit funny because I think very wealthy areas, they tend to have their own things, and they can obviously hire people to come to the house. And I think at UCLA it was also a sort of a slow start with that program, but now we have about 12 to 15 kids in that program. Burbank, like I said, started 2 weeks ago. We have about 7 kids there in the program. That was a nice number to start with, and so that's really the history of the program, where we are today. Like I said, we started in Boston. And there have been some great stories of how we've launched programs with I can remember a high school kid in Boston that ended up at Vanderbilt University, and he approached me and said, I want to start a program here at Vanderbilt because we have a big autism center, and he got it off the ground. I mean, I send the equipment, but they managed to get it off the ground. He's got about 12 kids in the program there. He was a freshman when he launched the program, and now I think there's about 12 kids in the program, and he has, pre-med students working at the Autism Center, volunteering their time. They even did a training session there. I mean, it's pretty rewarding for me when I hear stories like that, where I have a 17, 18-year-old kid that started with the program as a volunteer, and now he's started his own program.